Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about a more advanced form of modeling, polygon modeling. Unlike what we did in our last module where we just played around with some basic primitives so we could create a very basic object, today we're actually going to start from a polygon and then we're going to extrude, move elements of that polygon until we get the shape we want, just from one simple element. So let's start creating a cube here. And before we actually start modeling, we need to understand some main concepts here. First, a little review here. You need to be very comfortable with Maya navigation. So remember, you have to press Alt and the left mouse button or the equivalent left mouse button on your Wacom, and then you can tumble around the object. If you press Alt and the middle mouse button, you're gonna be panning the view. And if you press Alt and the right button, you're gonna be zooming in and zooming out. And for any reason, if you wanna focus on the object, you just press F and you're gonna be focusing either on the object or in the element that you're working with. Okay, now that you remember how to navigate, we need to talk about different modes in Maya. Every time you create an object, you're gonna be automatically in the object mode. Let me create some copies of that object. I'm gonna just press Shift, hold Shift and move this, and I'm gonna create a duplicate of my little cube. So remember that we can select the select tool, pressing Q, and we can go to the move tool with W. We can go to the rotate tool pressing E, and we can go to the scale tool pressing R. So it is the Q, W, E, R shortcuts on your keyboard. Keep that in mind as we're going to be moving from those throughout this exercise. And okay, let's talk about modes. We have two objects here. We're still in the object mode because as I select things, I only select the whole object. We have some different modes in Maya. Click the first cube here and right click and hold the button, right click, and you're gonna see what we call a marking menu. This radial menu here has some different options, and those four here are the most important. The object mode, that's where we are right now, the edge mode, the vertex mode, and the face mode. If I go to the face mode, now I can select different faces of my little cube. As I hover over one face, I get this preview. This red, the red means it's just a preview. It is still not selected. It means if I click this, then I'm gonna select what is red. So what is really selected, it's the orange color. So you have a little preview here. You can right click and you can change to another mode. We can go to the edge mode. It's gonna be the same principle. We get a red highlight of anything that we want to select, and if you click to select, you're gonna have a orange selection. That's a very simple concept to understand. And finally, it is the same thing in the vertex. You have the highlight here and you can pre-select, and then you select, you get this yellow selection. Let's go to the face selection and see what we can do. Anything that you can do to the whole model in terms of moving, rotating, scaling, you can do just to this face. So I can move this face around. I can rotate this face in different axes. And I can scale this face. As you probably noticed this is very powerful. We can create a lot of different shapes just moving parts of our little cube. But that's not all that we're going to do. We're actually going to do more than that. We're going to create more faces from this original cube. Before we start doing this, let's keep in mind the different way of switching from the different modes. As I said, the marking menu is the most common way. Right click and you can select the different modes. Another way is here on the modeling toolkit. Remember, we have the channel blocks, we have the tools options, we have the attribute editor, we have the human IK, and the first one is the modeling toolkit. This is a very convenient collection of all the main modeling tools of Maya. Most of those tools you can find in other places of Maya, but here is very convenient for you to model. And including this is a very quick way to select different modes. The first one, if you click here, you're in object mode. Second one, vertex mode. Third one, edge mode. Fourth one, face mode. And then we have an extra one, which is the UV mode, but that's a little bit more advanced. We're going to talk about that later. And you have another mode here, which is the multi-component. You can actually access this too. It works a little bit different. It means that you can select any of those three, vertex, edge, or face at the same time. Very powerful, but it can get a little bit confusing if you're not more familiar with Maya. So in the beginning, I would recommend staying on one mode, like just work on the face, just on the edge, or just on the vertex until you feel comfortable with the Maya tools. Okay, so let's talk about some of the modeling tools that we're going to be using here and how we're going to be using. The main idea of polygon modeling is that we're going to start from a cube. Let me delete the second one here. Actually, object, and delete this, and let's go back to this one. The main idea of the polygon modeling, it is to start with a very simple polygon, and then we start creating new geometry from that. The main tool that we're going to be using for this is this tool here, the extrude. You can extrude faces, you can extrude edges, but we're going to be mostly extruding faces. If I click here, I get this little gizmo here. I can just move this up, and then I create more material. What is going on here? Basically, I'm moving the original face, and instead of creating a gap, any gap that you would have here is filled by new faces, connecting the original face with the edges that were left. Very powerful, and that's how you can create a lot of stuff. So one of the way you can create more stuff is just moving the little gizmo here, which is the same of controlling here the thickness in the little floating window you have here. In the floating window, you have more options. For example, you can offset. So you can make this taper, you can make this wider. We can create more divisions. So instead of just having one division, we can have like 2, 3 divisions. And we have the option of keeping the faces together. This only makes sense when you're extruding more than one. So for example, you have those 2 faces, and I click extrude, and I'm gonna change the thickness here. He's gonna extrude both them together. If I turn this off, they're gonna be extruded, each one in its own direction. So the idea here of extrude is basically we are gonna be clicking here, moving a little bit, then we click another one, click here, click more, click extrude, and then we can start creating some very different forms. It's very powerful, very simple. We're not gonna be always extruding like very direct like I'm doing. We have some different ways of extruding. For example, we can just select the face and we can click extrude, and we are not gonna touch the thickness. We can only touch like the offset, and we can create what in some other software is called an inset or a extrude inner. So from this one, I can come here and create another extrude, and then I can either create a hole or I can create an extension here. As you probably noticed, you can create some very interesting shapes with this. And remember, we can always offset in the other direction to create more interesting shapes. This is the main tool of polygon modeling, and that's how we're going to be creating most of our shapes. So another very powerful tool that we're going to be using is the multi-cut tool. The multi-cut tool has 3 different modes. The first one is very straightforward. As you hover around any edge or point, you're going to have a preview, and the tool is going to snap in that element. So I can click here, create a point, click here, create another one here, and the last one I'm gonna be snapping to the vertex. And then you need to confirm the cut. You can do that either pressing enter or pressing Q to select another tool, and that's gonna become permanent. That's the first mode of the multi-cut tool. The second mode is probably the one we're gonna be using the most, which is basically a loop creation tool. So if I press Ctrl, I get this nice preview here. So this is called in 3D animation a loop. It means a sequence of edges following a sequence of perpendicular edges in the in the other direction. So this here is what we call a ring, and a loop follows that ring, creating this nice cut here. If I press Ctrl, I have the preview, then I can create different cuts very quickly. It's a very powerful and quick way of creating new cuts. We can even snap this to a more precise position. If I press Ctrl and Shift, I get some previews. I can snap to the middle of the faces, so it's going to be a precise 50% cut, and we can even do like 25% here or 1/4 here. So that's the second mode of the multi-cut, and the last one is better used in the orthographic view. That's the third mode. Basically, you can create a whole cut that's gonna cut through the object. You start outside of the object, and then you create this line, and then you release. Oh, so nothing happened. Why not? That's because I had a face selected. I need to have no face selected. I need to have no face selected, so the tool is gonna affect the whole object. So let's do that again. I'll select outside and I cut here. Boom. It cuts across the object. Again, this works better. You can actually use here in the perspective view, but it doesn't make much sense because it's difficult to guess exactly where it's going to be cutting. This third mode is better used in this view, so we can create some very precise cuts if you need. We do have a lot of other tools I'm going to be talking about as we create our objects, but for now, just remember those main tools, the extrude and the different modes of the multi-cut. So let's start modeling some stuff. So let's create our first model with polygon modeling. As usual, we're going to start with a cube with a little box. a little curiosity. Originally, polygon modeling was called box modeling. That's because you start modeling with a little cube, a little box. That became kind of the most common way of modeling stuff, both for animation and for games in the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and for a long time it was called box modeling, but now it is just polygon modeling. So we have our cube here. I want to get back to the original creation node of this object. So I can go here into the channel box and I can click the polycube. So I have access to the width, height, depth, and the subdivisions. I can also just press T and I get this nice little manipulator here with that information. The T shortcut is the show manipulator tool. Every time you press T, it's gonna show you the float window of the last tool you have used. When you just created an object, you're gonna get not the manipulator of any tool, but actually from the creation of that object, because that was basically the tool that created the object. So what I want to do here is just change a little bit of the height. So I'm gonna click and drag here until I get, I don't know, 0.2. That seems fine. And for the width, I'm gonna go to 2, and depth gonna be 2. Okay. So now we have the starting shape that we want. So let's go back to the modeling toolkit, and we're gonna do some extra cuts here. So let's select the multi-cut tool, and I'm gonna press Control so I get a nice preview here, and I'm gonna press Shift so I get this snap here. I'm gonna snap around here, which is, if I'm not mistaken, 1/5 of the area here. It could be less, but I wanted this one here. So let's click this, and I'm gonna do the same here. And then another one here, and another one here. Okay, so we're gonna move to the face mode, and we're gonna select the faces in the bottom, and now we're gonna extrude this. Again, we can either move the thickness or we can just move this. Let's move around here. Let's see if this is good. I think it could be even less, maybe like this. Okay, I'll go back to the object mode, and actually I want to make this a little bit thicker, so I'm gonna go to the point mode, select those points. I'm gonna move this more like this, go back to the object mode, and I'm gonna move this up because I want the feet of my chair, and that's what we're doing. We are modeling a chair. I think it should be here. So okay, so far so good. Now we wanna do the rest, the backrest of the chair. So let's select the face mode. Again, you can select here or you can select here, and let's select this here, and we are gonna extrude this. Again, let's click extrude, and we can come here in the side view and see what would be a good size for this. I think this would be good, but I want to create more detail here. So I'm gonna go back to the selection face, and I'm gonna deselect this. Just control click and you deselect that. So here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna extrude, but this time I'm gonna use the offset too. So extrude, I'm gonna move this here and I'm gonna offset this a little bit. You see, is because it's a tiny thing and I'm not having a lot of control. If I press control, I have a more fine-tuned control of the offset. Instead of going from 0.1 steps, it is using 0.01 steps, which is very nice. So let's create something like this. So now we have a basic chair here. As you can see, very simple. Let's go here in the outliner and let's rename this P cube, and it's gonna be called a chair now. So that's our first object. If you wanna check the topology, you turn on wireframe on shaded so you can see this a little bit better. This is your first object. So now let's move this. Oh yeah, let's select the chair and move it a little bit further from the center. And let's create our second object. As usual, we are gonna be starting with a cube. And let's go to the top view. Press wireframe on shaded and press T to get back the gizmo with the initial creation parameters of the object. Remember, you can get this here from the channel box too. Just click the polycube too. It is the same thing. Okay, we're gonna make something a little bit bigger. So we're gonna have a width of, I don't know, maybe, I guess 6 is good. Six is good, and it's a little bit too thick for what we want to do. Let's click wireframe on shaded so we have a better idea what is going on here. So the height will be, I don't know, 0.5, maybe 0.5 is too much. 0.4, that's good. Let's move this up around here. And this is gonna be the beginning of a table. I think I want this a little bit bigger, so instead of just 6, I'm gonna be 6.5. Okay. So let's create some cuts here. Gonna create, we can do this better here, and we can click the X-ray so we can see the grid. We don't need this anymore, so let's select tool here. Go to the modeling toolkit, and we're gonna use the multi-cut tool. And we're gonna use the second mode with control. So let's create a cut here, another cut here, cut here, and cut here. Then another cut here, another cut here. Keep in mind, as I'm creating those cuts, they are cutting across the 3D model, right? Because I'm using the control mode. It cuts across as a loop. So let's create the final one here, which is gonna be something more like here. Uh, Actually, I think the last one was wrong. It should have been here. Yeah, it should be inside. Okay, so now we have the basics of our table. Let's just get this face here. So let's go to the face mode. And again, you could go to the mold on the face just with the marking menu. Click here, 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 and here. And let's extrude. So far I've been extruding, clicking here. We have some different ways of extruding. One way is press shift and press right click. You get a different marking menu. You get a marking menu with the most used modeling tools. So it's basically a way of you maybe pretty much like having the same tools that you have here in the modeling toolkit, but just in any part of Maya where your cursor is. So if I'm here, shift, right click, I get all those tools here. And extrude is here, is one of the main ones. I click here and I'm gonna go down here. So now we have our table. We can go here in the outliner and we're gonna call this table. So let's select the chair and let's create 3 copies of this chair. So I'm gonna press shift and hold and then I'm gonna move. So I'm gonna create 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm gonna pick the first one and I'm gonna move this closer here. Then I'm gonna move this other one very close to. And the same thing with the other ones. But then we need to rotate those guys here. You see they're in the correct position, but we need to rotate them. One quick way of doing this would be to just rotate here, but then we would be kind of eyeballing. You see it's not precisely 180. I could just press here 180. Boom, and then it's gonna correct. But there's a better way, changing the tools of the rotation tool. If I'm in the rotation tool and I go to the tools here, I can turn on the step snap. It is currently on off. I can put this on relative, and it is in 5. It's gonna rotate in increments of 5 degrees. So it's gonna be very easy to see precisely to have the precise rotation we want. So let's go back to the channel box so we can see this here. So as I rotate, you see it goes from minus 35, minus 40, minus 45. It never gets that very like point something. So I can easily go to minus 90 in this case. And for this other one here, I'm gonna do the same and we're gonna go to 90. So now we have a very nice table and 4 chairs. So we can, if you want, you can go back here and turn off the step snap in the rotation tool. There's a little shortcut for this. If you press J, it turns on and off. So you can actually leave that off, and then when you need, you press J and you're gonna have the snap, and then you stop holding J. Very useful shortcut. So we have the tables and the chair. So let's move this, let's select this, and I'm not gonna group this. I'm gonna just select this and I'm gonna press H. And now we're gonna start modeling some more complex models. So now we're gonna model a cup, a beer cup. So as usual, let's start with a little cube. We're gonna move this cube here. We want this cube to be above the thicker line, which represents the ground. We're gonna press T so we get the initial settings of the cube. And the main thing we're gonna do here is to change some of the subdivisions. I want this to be like 2, 2, and 2. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to the face mode. Can either go in the modeling toolkit or like I did here with the marquee menu. We're gonna select those faces here in the top. And we're gonna use this command here, circularizer. As I click this, boom, it becomes more like a circle. I can do the same thing here. And I cannot select the faces here and do the same. I have to select the edges. So select edge mode, click twice. So you select the ring and you click here, boom. Now you have a more of a cylinder. We could have done the cylinder primitive, but why didn't I do that? Here's the reason. If I click here and I create a cylinder, let's press T so I can make less axis, subdivision axis. I can go to around 8, which would be the equivalent of this one. What is the main difference here? The main difference, I have those extra lines here. When we're working in polygon modeling, you wanna stay on quads. So it's better to have this, which is a quad, than those bunch of triangles here. So it's much better to start with a cube and get the shape you want instead of starting with this one here. So that was the reason I started with a cube. Okay, so back here, let's go to my view here. Gonna go up. We are gonna select those faces here. And instead of extruding, we're gonna use a new command. We're gonna use bevel, which works kind of similar to extrude with the offset, but a little bit different. So let's click the bevel. You see we get a bunch of options. First, you have depth, which works kind of similar to extrude. We have fraction. As the fraction works similar to extrude, but instead of extruding outside of the original faces, it creates this nice extra ring of faces here. And we can create more segment. And if you create one more or two, you can see we can create this nice chamfer that's a little bit like curved. This, I think 3 is good. If we have chamfer off, we don't get that nice effect, but then it works pretty much like the extrude with subdivision. But the main point of using the bevel is to have the chamfer. So that's what we're gonna be doing. Bevel, fraction 0.3, segment 3. Now I'm gonna go back to my select tool. I'm gonna select those here. I'm gonna move this a little bit more like here. think this bevel was a little bit too thin, so I'm adjusting a little bit. Let's go to the vertex mode. I want to make my cup a little bit taller. So I'm gonna select the top faces. I'm gonna go to extrude. Remember, I can click extrude here. I can shift, press right click and go to extrude. And we have two more ways of going about the extrude. We can press Ctrl E and you automatically get the extrude command. Let's offset here. Oh, there was a mistake. I selected some extra face. So let's undo this and select only the top ones. And again, Control E. Just offset this. Now I'm gonna click extrude again. It could be Control E, it could be here, or it could be Shift, right click, extrude face, and I'm gonna go down. It's good to come here and go to the X-ray mode so you can see exactly what you're doing. Should be, I think, should be here. So now we have a cup. And we just need to create a handle for this cup. So we are gonna be creating some extra lines here. We're gonna go to multi-cut, Control Shift, so it's gonna snap kind of in the middle here and kind of in the middle here. And we're gonna go to the vertex mode. And let me check just something. I wanna create like the handle in the Z-axis, so I'm in the right place, like the blue one here. So I'm gonna select this vertex and this one. And we're gonna use the bevel tool. The bevel tool works a little bit different when you're using the vertex. So it basically creates an extra face in the area that you selected, in the area of each vertex. So we can make this a little bit bigger, but I think that was kind of nice, like this. And then here I think is good. Okay, now I'm gonna select those two. And here on the side, I'm gonna extrude them. There's even another way of extruding. So far we talked about clicking here, Shift right click, extrude, or Control E to get extrude, but you can also just, if you're in the move tool, you can just press Shift and you're gonna get extrude. So that's what I'm gonna be doing here. And I'm gonna go to the point tool, gonna select those faces here. And I need to make those vertices here to be in the same line. They need to be aligned with those here. The easiest way, I could manually just move them, but then wouldn't be like super precise. To be sure they're exactly in the same line, I can select all of them, go to the scale tool, and then I scale them down until I get to 0. Now they are gonna be in the exact same level, and I'm gonna have a very flat face here. So now we can extrude this. Move to, press shift, you see you get like a preview, a little extrude word there. So I can create one more here. And I'm gonna be sure I selected this one, and I'm gonna rotate. Actually, I wanna be sure I have the snap. I can press just J to have this on, so I can rotate this like this. Do the same for this one. I want to make this a little bit bigger, because as we rotate, they're not gonna be as thick as the other ones. So here, because the face is in the diagonal, I wanna scale the face, but I need to be able to scale the face in the same direction of the face. So let's click twice here. Either we can go here in the tools and we can change the axis orientation of the scale tool. We can also do this here in the modeling toolkit. We have scale settings. It is in the object. We can go component mode. So now it's going to be following the component mode. So again, let's scale this like this. And this here. Okay, so let's go back to the world, not the world, object. Select here, and let's extrude again. Actually, before I extrude, I'm gonna move this down a little bit, and this a little bit. And we're gonna go one more, and one more. Now we're gonna rotate. Let's rotate the same thing here. Like so here. Should go a little bit lower here. So we need to connect this and this, so we can select both, and we're gonna use a third tool we haven't used so far. So the new tool we need to use in this case is the bridge tool. So let's click bridge, and it's gonna connect both faces. We do have some options here. We can create some extra divisions, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create one extra division here, and we're gonna go back to the edge mode, click twice to select all of it, and let's move a little bit so we get a little bit of a curve here. Let's do the same for this, but this time we're gonna rotate a little bit. And the same thing here. Okay, now we have the handle of our cup. So basic shape. So this is another object we have. Let's unhide what we have so far. And let's give a name. Let's call the cup cup. And I think we're gonna realize it's a little bit too big, right? Feels more like a jar of beer than a cup. So we can scale this down. More like this. I think this would be good. And let's put our cup here. Okay, so far so good. 3 different objects, cup, table, chair. So let's hide the chairs and the table. Actually, I'm gonna select them and I'm gonna group them. So I'm gonna press Ctrl G, and that's gonna create a group. And I'm gonna rename this table with chairs. So it's easier to hide and unhide them. So I can just select the group and press H and they're gonna be hidden. So let's select the cup and let's talk a little about the feng shading of our object. Press F to focus here. Be sure you're in object mode and click outside of the object. This time we don't want to see the lines, so we're gonna turn off the wireframe on shaded. We're gonna see we see the kind of the flat faces of this model. We want this to be soft, even though it is a very low poly model, but I wanted to give this the illusion of this being a little bit smoother than actually it is. This is how we used to model games for older game consoles like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. So let's go to the face mode. Click one face, click two eyes, so you select everything. And then let's go to mesh display. And then you have 2 options, harden edge, soften edge. Let's click soften edge. Now go to object mode, click outside. You're gonna see this part looks very smooth, nice. But the top looks kind of funky and here it doesn't look that well. So we're gonna make some part of it a little bit sharper. So you can go to the, let's go to the edge mode. And I'm gonna click twice here. So you select the ring. Shift and click twice in this other one here. And now we're gonna go to mesh display and harden edge. So this part's gonna be hard. We're gonna do the same for the part that connects the handle to the cup. And we're gonna do the same for this one here. And now we're gonna go to mesh display, harden edge. Now if you go back to the object mode, click outside, it makes a little bit more sense. It looks rounder here, but this part here looks flat. Again, this is a very, very low poly model. I'm teaching you how to do a very extreme poly model so you get the gist of it. Later on, we could subdivide this to get a more smooth version. We could go here in the subdivision, click here, and we could give different subdivisions. This is one subdivision. We could give 2 subdivisions and we would get a much finer cup, but we're still not there. This is more organic modeling. This is what I'm going to be doing the next module. Today I want to guys to focus on the very basic low poly type of modeling. So this is our cup, and let's jump to 2 more objects that are a little bit more complicated.